Let's begin in the west of the African continent, where President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has condemned the mislabeling of Nigeria as a hub for cybercrime and corruption, asserting that such blanket stereotyping undermines the integrity of the majority who uphold principles of diligence. Speaking at a public engagement on youth, religion and anti-corruption organized by the EFCC in Abuja on Wednesday, the president emphasized Nigeria's significant contribution globally. The president, who was represented at the event by his deputy, Vice President Kashim Shettima, noted that, on the contrary, Nigerians are meticulous, authentic citizens who have been making significant contributions to innumerable fields of endeavors around the world. The president also admitted that cybercrime have evolved into a global phenomenon, but assured the anti-graft agency of the government support in its quest to combat these digital offenses and also neutralize the threat caused by other forms of corruption head-on.
Nigerians have been victims of mislabeling. Such gross misrepresentation fails to reflect the true essence of our diverse and resilient nation of 226 million people, with the most thriving immigrant community in the United States are the Nigerian American, 60% of whom have gone to college. The association of internet crimes within the entire Nigerian populace lacks statistical evidence and does not align with the sociology of everyday Nigerians. Our nation comprises hardworking, honest citizens who contribute significantly to various fields globally, from medicine to artificial intelligence. While we reject blanket stereotyping that undermines the majority upholding principles of integrity and diligence, we must face the fact that we function in an interconnected world where cyber crimes have evolved into a global phenomenon. This poses a threat not only to our nation, but to the entire world.
In the meantime, the chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Ola Olukoyede, has revealed that the agency's discovery of a religious sect laundering money for terrorists. Speaking during a public forum on youth, religion and the fight against corruption, as well as the launch of the Fraud Risk Assessment Project for ministries, departments and agencies, the chairman disclosed that the EFCC was investigating a 13 billion naira fraud case, with 7 billion naira traced to a religious group's account. He emphasized the widespread involvement of religious entities in money laundering. The FCC boss vowed to pursue justice and recover stolen funds, despite facing legal barriers from probing the religious organization leaders. The one-day event is aimed at addressing the challenges of youth involvement in cybercrime and how religion can be used as a weapon for their reorientation. The Public Accounts Committee of the House of Representatives has directed the Federal Fire Service to reimburse the sum of 1.48 billion naira to the Federation account within the span of a week. This action follows the revelation that the service received intervention funds for the COVID-19 health epidemic, but failed to provide an account for their utilization. The committee, led by Bamidele Salam, issued the directive on Wednesday after the Federal Fire Service failed to appear at the investigative hearing for the third consecutive time. Deputy Chairman Jeremiah Omar spearheaded the motion for the refund, highlighting the necessity for accountability, particularly as numerous other agencies have cooperated with the committee's investigation into COVID-19 intervention funds. Simultaneously, the committee has dispatched fresh invitations to several other defaulting ministries, departments and agencies of the federal government, as these entities are summoned to appear and address various queries stemming from the Auditor General of the Federation's reports on the allocation and utilization of billions of naira as COVID-19 intervention funds. The Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde has taken a decisive action by signing into law Executive Order 001 of 2024, aimed at regulating the handling and storage of harmful substance within the state. In a critical section of the order, Governor Makinde issued a stern 72-hour ultimatum for individuals possessing any form of explosive to declare them immediately. This development comes in the wake of a tragic explosion that shook the state capital, Ibadan, on January 16, resulting in 5 fatalities, 77 injuries, and the destruction of 58 homes in the Adegboye area of Old Bodija. Governor Makinde, while addressing the media, expressed confidence that the implementation of this new law would significantly reduce the likelihood of a reoccurrence of the January 16th explosion. He noted that the executive order takes effect immediately.
The executive order is on handling explosive, on handling substances that are dangerous, that are harmful. It may not just be explosives. You're not supposed to be walking around with acid, for instance. So if you're caught in Oyo State, not following the law on how to handle such substances, the law will take its course.
Anybody, any company or individual that is in possession of harmful substances stored in residential houses should notify the state government of the possession of such substances. And this obligation takes effect immediately. So they are required to report within the next 72 hours.
More reactions have continued to trail the suspended Delta State Commissioner for Agriculture and Natural Resources, among Perez over alleged infractions in the implementation of the Greenhouse Project by the State Ministry of Agriculture and Natural Resources. This time, the Inter-Party Advisory Committee, the umbrella body of the registered political parties in Delta State, has commended the state government for being proactive. IPAC chairman in the state, Comrade Emeka Bodoku, who disclosed this to News Central correspondent Austin Ozu in Asaba, the state capital, said the action of the governor is to pave way for thorough investigation into alleged corruption leveled at the former commissioner. Bidoku, who is also the state chairman of the Action Alliance, said the governor's approval to suspend the commissioner and others is not ethnic, but a means to fulfill his more agenda to all Deltans.
We are so happy. We've been complaining of previously, sometimes we complain of this high-handedness in government, corruption, and some other things. But now, as IPAC, we have seen a governor that wants to live up to what he has promised us as a body. We have had several conversations with him, and there's been a lot of promises, and we are seeing them come to pass. I want to say thank you, Your Excellency, for this right step in the right direction. We are not finding them guilty, but for taking such steps, a bold step, we say thank you very much. IPAC is happy. Now we can relax and rest and say, yes, we know there's a capable hand in the government house of United States, and we trust him to do well and the right thing at the right time. But now this is the
Let's move to security matters now, where several persons have been reportedly killed in a fresh attack in the Ogboju community of Agatu local government area of Benue State, north-central Nigeria. While conflicting reports trail the exact number of casualties, it was reported that 9 persons died in the latest violence in the north-central state. The attack, which happened on Wednesday night, was carried out by suspected herdsmen. Now, a former deputy chairman of Agatu local government, that's John Ikwulona, said 9 corpses were recovered after the attack. The Benue state government and the police authority are yet to confirm the latest attack. The 6th Division, that's Nigerian Army, on Wednesday said it uncovered a massive illegal refinery camp and seized 5 million liters of stolen crude oil stored in a reservoir in Rivers State. The general officer commanding 6th Division, that's Major General Jamal Abdul Salam, said the illegal refinery was uncovered along the Manyeri Channel of the Imo River in the Komkom area of Onyibo local government area of the state. He said troops found about 5 million liters of stolen crude stored in a reservoir, adding that powerful persons were behind oil theft, given the scale of which it was being perpetrated. Now, the latest discovery is coming about a week after the military discovered about 3 million liters of crude in an illegal refinery at Adegboye in the Eche local government area of Rivers State. Election stakeholders in Nigeria have called on the nation's legislature to ensure the speedy resolution of election disputes. They say they want dispute cases resolved before winners of elections in the country are sworn in. Now, News Central's correspondent Eden Joseph tells us more.
The election adjudication process is almost over, mainly in disagreement with the conduct of Nigeria's general elections and the result declared by the nation's electoral body. Despite Nigeria's apex court finally resolving many of the disputes before it, there are many who think there are areas in the process that need improvements.
Key findings were that transparency and access to information was a little bit open, but again, very challenging. So we need to ensure and engage tribunal secretaries going forward in the future so that we can have some level of access. The second thing we found out were bureaucracy in terms of accessing information, and this bureaucratic process particularly inhibited our trained observers from accessing relevant public documents at the Election Petition Tribunal in most states. The tribunal secretaries oftentimes will refer you to the appeal court in Abuja to go and secure permission.
Despite election disputes not new to Nigeria, advocates are calling for a review of legislation bordering on the timing for the conclusion of these disputes. They say they want laws enacted that will compel political office holders removed by the court to refund benefits received while in office.
All electoral disputes must be concluded before the swearing in of a particular political office holder. And the reason why this is so is that taxpayers' monies are actually draining on a regular.
If they can do that, it will help us. Secondly is that when you look at it, when somebody, how many people, I don't know, they need to come and tell us that have been sworn in and they have stayed in office for a number of maybe months or even years. And how many of them have we had that they have returned the money they collected? And the person who is supposed to be the beneficiary, not in the terms of governor, but in terms of the members, were they able to pay them?
I think it shouldn't have been in the first instance. So these are kind of signals that we're worried about, and I'm happy that we hope that when we share this document, and I know a number of civil society have done review of the whole electoral circle, that the government will listen to us, and together we'll be partners in reviewing the electoral process and make it more acceptable, and less persons will go to court. Because
the recent contradictory judgment by the court also raised concerns about the integrity of the judiciary. Stakeholders here said the judiciary must assert its independence to really be the hope of the common man. In Abuja for News Central, I am Eden Joseph.
Let's move to a business-related story now. Verified claims owed to foreign airlines whose payments have been blocked in the country. However, Airline Association IATA said another $700 million of owed money remained in Nigerian banks. Are they essentially saying the same thing in different ways? Or is the use of the word verified the simple differentiator in this conversation? Now, joining me on the news right now to discuss this is Alex Wuba, President, Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association of Nigeria. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Pleasure to be on the show.
All right, great. Now, from the last payment by the CBN to foreign airlines, how much did the country owe them in total?
Well, according to IATA, we still have an outstanding balance of about 700 million. We paid 65 now. We had paid 265 last year. And so what essentially is being said is the same thing. The central bank says we've paid all verified amounts. Verified amounts simply means the amounts that have been bidded for at the central bank. So what they've done essentially is give to these institutions the amounts they bidded for. The balance is left commercial banks, and so that's where there's a gap. And that's the explanation of the word verified.
Now, in November 2023, IATA said the total amount Nigeria owed international airlines was at $783 million, out of which it said only about 10% had been paid. Yet, now the CBN recently paid about $136.7 million. Now, could you please help us reconcile these numbers and maybe take us through how this process in itself works?
Well, you know, when you get a number, it means it's valid on that day, but tickets are being sold every day. And in the last few months, airfares have doubled and quadrupled. So the velocity at which previously. So we owe $760 million now. By next month, based on this month, it would increase, and if we don't pay, the numbers just keep increasing. So it just becomes a function of what we pay and what the balance is due at the point of payment. The issue is what was paid was the amount that had been verified, meaning the amount that had been bidded for at the central bank through the I&E window, and the balance is remaining in the banks, in the accounts of these airlines.
Now, it's not only foreign airlines that need dollars. Even local airlines need dollars too. I mean, seeing the sector is highly dollarized. Now, what has been your experience so far trying to access Forex for your business, given the fact that we know that the Nigerian Naira keeps, there's a free fall when it comes to that particular sector. And based on a report I saw today, for instance, to go from Nigeria to London is about is over 10 million naira. So I would like you to explain to us how this is also affecting, what I call it consumer, patronage in terms of how much it is, one can fly maybe within the country and out of the country.
Well, what's going on essentially is that when airlines sold tickets, they deposited these monies to be bidded for to go to the central bank to be repatriated to their home countries. When that didn't happen, they were essentially then trading without receiving the income. And so in order to foreclose the potential, as we can see what has happened with the Naira and the dollar, to foreclose potential, they basically hedged by providing for what they believed will be the future value of the Naira, and that drove up fares. At the same time, what they did was, in aviation, you have a basket of fares. So in one airplane, you can have 60 different fares to the same destination. And so some are lower, the ones you usually buy long-term, and some are much higher, which are the last-minute fares. And so what these international carriers did was remove these lower fares so that they could get much higher premiums for these tickets based on the demands. Demands have not ebbed. Yes, they've slowed down a bit, but Nigerians are still traveling. So these higher fares were then offered to consumers, which increased the fares overall. As you pointed out, it's not just about international airlines. Nigerian airlines have a huge demand for foreign exchange, and they're not getting them either. And so what you have is this situation where airlines have sent aircraft out for maintenance and cannot source the dollar at reasonable rates to bring the airplanes in. So you have aircraft shortage, which leads to these schedule anomalies that we're getting to see. So the foreign exchange component affects even the training of pilots, the purchase of spare parts, even the price of fuel. So all of these things are tied around the dollar, and we are, as an economy, paying for it. And the bill keeps getting higher because everybody sends their demands for dollars to the central bank. The rest you can get through the black, or what we call the parallel market, and that's a very high premium cost. So everybody tries at least to get the funds through the central bank at somewhat of a discounted rate. And that's not coming through, so everybody is bound and tight, and we're having these high fares, and we're having these airline difficulties. I can tell you for certain, airlines are not able to meet their cost in terms of the demand. So airlines, essentially, fuel prices have gone up, maintenance prices have gone up, service prices have gone up, the dollar has gone down.
So, sorry, you said airlines are not able to meet... Okay, you said airlines are not able to meet their targets in terms of demand. Are you saying in spite of the increase, people are still patronizing them? They still remain, they cannot meet up in terms of the capacity of customers on ground? Is that what you're saying?
No, the airline industry is getting a much higher bill than the service that they're providing. And the airline industry is cognizant of the fact that there's price resistance. There's a point in which you charge a fare. Maybe it's fair to charge 400,000 between Lagos and Enugu, but nobody's going to buy that, so the airplanes will be empty. So they have to eat some of this cost in the short term while the economy and the dollar realigns.
All right, so what would you suggest as a way forward? Or do we continue to see this prices go up, even though there are there's no patronage?
Well, what has happened is the National Association of Nigerian Travel Agents have told the foreign carriers, now that you receive these dollars that have been tracked at the central bank, there's no reason to continue to offer these much higher fares, since you know that your future demand will be met. That's what the central bank has essentially done by releasing this fund. So therefore, they should be able to offer much lower fares. And they've actually given the international carriers an ultimatum on one level. On the second level, as the minister said yesterday, we need national capacity. We need our own domestic airlines that charge in dollars. Don't export the funds that are made overseas, and therefore can ameliorate these costs and lower fares on one hand, so people can travel more. But what I continue from a policy point of view is not just to create an avenue for Nigerians to go abroad and export dollars, but to create avenues for others to fly to Nigeria to access services, which are at a much lower cost now due to the decline of the Naira, which will create a better economy to address the gaps that exist.
All right, Alex, before I let you go, just quickly, what's your take on the relocation of the FAN headquarters from Abuja to Lagos? In 30 seconds.
I think we've discussed it quite a bit. It's really semantics. The minister made it very clear. The FAN staff were asked to move to Abuja without provision of facilities for the proper conduct of their business. And so they essentially stayed in Lagos and flew back and forth every day at great cost. The agency said we can reduce this cost. Remember, the efficiency while generating additional revenues. So it was not really logical to get rid of this cost to say, okay, you stay in Lagos. It's not a matter of relocating. You stay in Lagos, conduct business from Lagos, and we continue to function the way we were functioning before this directive came to move to Abuja.
All right, thank you so much for your time. Alex Wuba, President, Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association of Nigeria. Once again, appreciate your time. Thank you. All right, still on the news at this time, the Senate has summoned the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, that's CBN, Mr. Ola Olukoyede, over the free fall of the Naira and hyperinflation. This summon was through its Committee on Banking, Insurance and Other Financial Institutions, headed by Senator Adegboye. The governor and his team were asked to appear on Tuesday next week to explain the state of the economy and the free fall of the Naira at the forex market. The committee at a meeting on Wednesday expressed concerns over the endless decline of the Naira that saw it rise to 1,520 Naira to a US dollar as of Wednesday. Speaking with journalists after the meeting held behind closed doors at the National Assembly, Senator Adegboye said the state of the economy, especially the inflation index, was a great concern to the lawmakers. In the meantime, the Central Bank of Nigeria has ordered deposit money banks to sell their excess dollar stock latest February 1st, 2024, as part of moves to stabilize the nation's volatile exchange rate. The CBN, which made the disclosure in a new circular released on Wednesday, also warned lenders against hoarding excess foreign currencies for profit. According to officials, the central bank believes some commercial banks hold long-term foreign exchange positions to enable them profit from the volatile movement of the exchange rates. This new circular introduces a set of guidelines aimed at reducing the risk associated with these practices. The latest curricula came barely 48 hours after the CBN released a circular warning banks and FX dealers against reporting the false exchange rates, amongst others. Earlier, CEO Asha Dynamic Solutions, Mokhtar Mohammed, spoke to us on this development.
Why don't you get the bank involved in the FX market? Why can't I go into my bank and look at the board and see how much the exchange is, how much a Naira is exchanging for a dollar, and then I change it right inside the bank? Why must I go to the street to meet ETC businessmen that I risk myself. I think for me, it's a good move. If you are saying that the bank should get involved in FX, they have excess liquidity. But we must not forget again, the central bank is silent because they also central bank are owing the banks some effects that they have not given to them also. So they should also address that side of it. Now, its impact will be very positive if it sees the light of the day, like I said. It could bring down the exchange rate. But again, like I said, the bank before now, the CBN was saying that the bank should not, their revaluation of the exchange rate, they shouldn't use that to pay shareholders. They shouldn't use it for operational costs. So by now, you are telling them those excess effects, they have to sell it. So if they sell it to the market, they want to have Naira. Are you going to tell them to just keep the Naira, or will they break the Naira into the system? And if they do that, that will create another monster that is called inflation. So how are you going to balance up this? So it's a big ask for the CBN. But hopefully when you have your own.
Motorists and other road users in Lagos State, southwest Nigeria, have called on the state government to intervene and regulate what they term recklessness and lawlessness by commercial tricycle operators in the state, otherwise known as keke riders. This comes as the State Traffic Management Authority, in an exclusive interview with News Central, says it will deal with anyone constituting a nuisance on Lagos roads. Now, News Central's Bernard Akede tells us more.
They have always been in operation in Lagos, plying streets and residential areas. But following the government's restriction of commercial motorcycles on highways and in other areas, keke riders have now increased in numbers and in some cases are constituting nuisance. From indiscriminate dropping off and picking up of passengers to disobeying traffic lights and even driving against oncoming traffic. The activities of some keke riders in the state has now become a huge cause for concern.
Keke man break traffic light everywhere in Lagos. Everybody knows. This small bus, this small at your back, so they don't obey traffic light. Police cannot arrest them. Last man cannot arrest them. You know why? Another why? Because there's a money every day. Give it to them. The person will collect money for your hand, collect money for their hand every day. You now say want to arrest them for traffic light. You can't do that. That's the problem we have in Lagos.
Okay, like me now, I stay in Magodo. So how do I do it? Not all buses entered Magodo, unless these blue ones, and sometimes they might not be available. So the only thing you can do is to board keke. So I can't really say we should ban them. But the only thing is that we give them orientation.
But the question must be asked, are the laws governing keke users different from those of other vehicle users?
It's still the same law that covers activities of all motoring public across the state, including trucks and tankers, in which you cannot rule out these minibuses as well. Their nuisance value is increasing on a daily basis, on an hour basis. But of course, our enforcement team is not relaxing on his house.
Many of the keke riders actually do know traffic rules, but in a bid to sometimes avoid multiple taxation, especially by officials of the National Union of Road Transport Workers, as well as to make excess profit, they sometimes break the law.
Concerning union and different things, might be the challenge we will get because we pay a lot of money for inside this union issue. And two, last month, so they among when we say they trouble us on the road. Now they get rest of mind for the road because of last month and other things. Where will you park? If you park, anyhow you park, sometimes I'll come there, call you say, why you park here? This place is the wrong place to park. At the end of the day, before you know, in our office, you must pay money for inside join.
There's no any message other than for them to make sure that they comply with the transport sector reform law in Lagos State and stop picking or dropping passengers at undesignated bus stop, for them not to ply one way, for them not be converting streets or roadside into a parking, a garage where they will line up and start calling passengers. They should not ply BRT corridor. They should obey the traffic light. They should ensure that at any point in time they are not found on the intersection line.
Lagos road users can only look to the appropriate authorities to continue to enforce traffic laws so as to rid the state of lawlessness of these keke riders so that unfortunate road incidences can be avoided. In Lagos for News Central, I'm Bernard Akede.
Burkina Faso's military-backed president says Russian troops could be deployed to fight jihadists in the West African country if needed. In an interview, Ibrahim Traoré said Russia was offering logistical and tactical training and was willing to sell whatever weapons were required by Burkina Faso. He said there were no restrictions on what could be bought from Russia, China, Turkey, or Iran, unlike other countries. His comments came amidst the reports that some 100 Russian fighters were last week sent to the African country as military instructors. The development also fuels speculation of Burkina Faso deepening security ties with Russia, like neighboring Mali, where Russian Wagner mercenaries operate. In the east of the African continent, Sudan's 9-month-old war has so far largely spared the country's east, but with the front line inching ever closer, and reports of military training camps across the border in Eritrea, the fragile peace there is in jeopardy. According to United Nations experts, the war has already killed thousands, including between 10,000 and 15,000 in a single city in the western Darfur region. The war pits Sudan's army chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan against his former deputy Mohamed Hamdan Daglo, known as Hemeti, who commands the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces. Analysts have said that the RSF is backed by the United Arab Emirates, which denies supporting the paramilitaries who have conquered large swaths of Sudan during fierce battles in central, western, and southern regions. Ethiopian rebel group Oromo Liberation Army has burnt vehicles that ignored its call for a transport strike in the populous Oromia region. Reports say many businesses, including banks and government offices, have been closed since the strike was declared on Monday. Now, several trucks were destroyed in various parts of Oromia during the strike that also left some civilians injured. The rebel group claims to fight for self-determination of the Oromo people, Ethiopia's largest ethnic group. It was designated a terrorist organization by the Ethiopian Federal Parliament in May 2021. And of course, Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg has apologized to families who say their children had been harmed by social media during a fiery hearing in the U.S. Senate. Zuckerberg, who runs Instagram and Facebook, turned to them and said no one should go through what they had. He and the bosses of TikTok, Snap, X, and Discord were questioned for almost 4 hours by senators from both parties. Lawmakers wanted to know what they are doing to protect children online. Legislation is currently going through Congress, which aims to hold social media companies to account for materials posted on their platforms. Wednesday's hearing was a rare opportunity for the U.S. senators to question tech bosses. We are joined by our correspondent, Afua Hagen, to, of course, give us some insight on this. Afua, thank you so much for your time. And let's start off with this. Tell us what this Senate hearing was actually all about.
A Senate hearing that was a room packed full of families who have either lost children to social media or their children have been done some great harm by it. And it was a rare opportunity for parents of these children to see bosses of these huge social media companies like Mark Zuckerberg, like Mr. Chu, be questioned about the regulations that they do or do not have in place to protect children who are online. Now, we know that social media companies like TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, and Facebook have some rules in place that children under 13 or 12 can't sign up, but we all know how easy it is to be able to get round those regulations. So you had 5 tech bosses who were in the room, and behind them sat the families, and this is of children who self-harmed or killed themselves as a result of social media companies. And these families really made their presence felt. They hissed when the CEOs of these companies walked in. They applauded when these lawmakers asked the really tough questions that needed to be asked. And this hearing was focused on protecting children from abuse online.
I mean, talking about protecting children from abuse online, we know that the CEO of Instagram, that's Mark Zuckerberg, actually did react, expressing regret. But also the issue of the role of parenting was also brought up. I would like to know what actually, was said on that as regards, yes, we know that these platforms are there, the owners need to be held accountable, but also there's also the role of parenting and family. So, I mean, what was discussed on that level?
Yes, I mean, there was a few standout moments from this US Senate hearing. And you're absolutely right, talking about the roles of parents and family when it comes to social media. And like I said, there are rules in place that should, but don't always prevent younger people under the age of 12 or 13 from signing up to these social media accounts. But we all know that it's very easy to get around those rules. And so it was talked about, families and parents having more of an eye on their children, being able to keep an eye on what they are looking at online. But also, when it comes to the bosses, Mr. Chu, who is the CEO of Snap, so he said, of TikTok, excuse me. Now, he said that he actually doesn't let his children sign up because they're under 13 years old, so they don't have any TikTok accounts, and that's how it should be. Mark Zuckerberg was questioned about some content that the tech boss showed an Instagram prompt that warned that users may about to see child sexual abuse material and asked if they would like to see the results anyway. And one US senator actually said to Mark Zuckerberg, "What the hell were you thinking? Having that online, isn't this something that should just be stopped automatically?" So there was a lot of discussion around that. And then you had that moment where Mark Zuckerberg was given the opportunity to say something to these parents. Remember, these are parents of children who've either killed themselves or been harmed by the content that they have seen online. And he was given an opportunity to speak to them. And he said that he was sorry for what they had gone through, and no parent should go through what they had gone through.
Now, let's talk about what would happen next in terms of regulation for social media platforms in the US and worldwide, given the fact that it's a very competitive market. And right now, I mean, in terms of subscribers, it's also a business. We know, quite a number of young people, businesses that hinge around it and make so much money. What's in the future? What's next?
I mean, social media is absolutely a business. We think it might be a nice place to share our photos and learn TikTok dances, but it's actually all about the advertising and also the algorithm, collecting our data and what people can do to make money online. And obviously, if they do that on the platform makes money as well. The question as to what will happen next, some people are saying that this US Senate hearing doesn't really mean anything, that it's just a bit of grandstanding and it's kind of an opportunity for tech bosses to be seen like they're actually doing something when in fact they aren't. I mean, the question here is all about the moderation. So how many moderators do we have working on these platforms that can make sure that images that could harm children or abuse doesn't get to them? And that's a really big question. At the moment, Meta and TikTok, who were the largest platforms represented, said they had about 40,000 moderators each. Snap says it has 2,300. X has 2,000, and Discord, which is a smaller social media platform, said it has hundreds. And a lot of people will be saying that that's not good enough. So we are far away from a point where we'll get to substantial regulation across the board of these social media giants, whether that's them putting more restrictions in place so that people, young people especially, cannot access and cannot be harmed and cannot see these type of images online. But social media giants will push a lot of that responsibility back onto parents, back onto people themselves to protect themselves. But it's a fine line to cross. And these social media giants do have a lot of responsibility on their hands to the people that use them to protect them from any abuse or any images that are harmful that they may see online.
All right. Of course, Afua Hagen, thank you so much for your time. Nigeria's Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Festus Keyamo, has revealed that the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, is currently investigating the controversial Nigeria Air deal that was sealed by his predecessor, Hadi Sirika. Now, the minister made this disclosure during an interview in Lagos, where he emphasized that there is an ongoing criminal investigation and that he has requested a report on the matter. Keyamo also stated that the government will not designate any local airline as a national carrier, but try to establish a proper national carrier. Nigeria's oil minister, Heineken Logbobiri, has expressed the country's desire to address the unresolved issues surrounding the disputed OPL 245 oil block in order to attract investment to its oil and gas industry. Talks have been held with Shell and Eni to discuss the matter. The minister reiterated that the government and other parties involved in the oil block deal bear no criminal liability, despite years of litigation surrounding the issue. In November, Nigeria withdrew a $1.1 billion civil claim against Shell and Eni related to corruption allegation in the deal, effectively ending all legal disputes over the oil asset. The government aims to resolve the problems surrounding OPL 245, which has seen no investment for 28 years, in a manner that benefits all parties involved. Meetings have taken place, including in London, to address the matter. All the best to both teams, especially Nigeria. But that's a wrap on the news at this time. Before we go, another look at some of our top stories. We told you that the Central Bank of Nigeria has ordered banks to sell excess dollars in 24 hours. Burkina Faso junta leader has mauled deployment of Russian troops to the country. We also told you that South African Development Community has rejected calls to declare cholera health emergency in the region. Don't forget to send in your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen. You can also follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch us live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Thanks for watching. I am Dapo, Adegboye.